Your alternative talk radio contact. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complacency, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
Well, Mark, welcome back on the show. You, of course, were on episode 247, The Missile Technician. So this is obviously part 2. And something that we did in the first part was we kind of kept referring to these things that you call, the events, that you had certain events go on. And we alluded to different things, but we wanted that to be a wholly separate subject and chat, and that's what we're here to do today. So welcome back, Mark.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Shannon. Yeah, so yeah, I have to separate them as events because, I still don't know what they are. So if you look at, I've had a high technical career, so I get the reason to do it, and I'm not a scientist, but I understand that you got to be able to repeat things to be able to prove that it exists or happened. And I know with this subject matter, with UFOs, aliens, good versus evil, whatever you want to call it. I know they're trying to prove, what happened after death, what's happening. The recent president starting a space force, what's that all about? It's a lot of confusion out there. But yeah, can I prove anything with these events? No, not really. But I can just gather up data and I can tell people about it and share my story. And maybe by sharing stories, I think we talked about that in the last show, that maybe we can put some more pieces together.
Yep, it's all about collecting those pieces. And if I may, and I would like you to start at the very beginning as early as you can remember and as much as you'd like to share. But before you do, just a quick recap. And I would highly recommend everybody, before you go on through this one, go back through and listen to episode 247, my first round with Mark. It was a great chat, and it'll set you up a little better for what we're about to talk about on this edition. However, just a little quick snippet to mention before we get into this. As time progresses and Mark gets into his career, the reoccurring theme was, if he was out on the sub, the quote-unquote events, which we'll get into very shortly, did not happen at all. Right, so that was kind of the main picture, and the head scratcher of a lot of this stuff, right?
Thank you, Shannon, for reminding that's the main thing. Hearing whatever we discussed today, and if you haven't heard the first one, that's the main thing keep in mind. When I was on the boat, I slept like a baby. I had nothing. I knew I had nothing to worry about. So yes, that's a head scratcher. And why does it not happen then?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so Mark, wherever you want to start, but if you could start, with that really early memory, which of course is very strange in and of itself that you could remember back that far, I think that'd be a good place to start.
So, normally you can't remember back to two. Most people, probably a fair amount of people can. 2 years old is a long time to think about. But there was usually some kind of trauma will set up a memory like that. And I remember a trauma that not only do I have a memory of something happening, but my mom was always amazed that I knew the color of the couch. I knew the layout of the house. You shouldn't be able to know all that information at 2 years old. So what had happened was I remember being on the couch, just sitting there, and a dark figure. I can add to this dark figure, but a dark, very tall figure picked me up from the couch, and I know it terrified me. I can't really put it together like what exactly, but I know it was tall and dark, and I know we walked from the living room, and I can draw a diagram. I can even send you. That's how I shouldn't be able to send you a diagram of the house there in Kentucky. But we walked into the kitchen, which there was a sliding glass door. I could see my mom on the phone. And back then, they had the long cords. And, housewives were twisting the corn while they're cooking and stuff. But she had her back to us. And we went out the back door, and then I went up somewhere with this thing. And then the memory cuts off there. I don't know if you can remember, the internet seemed like really, really free, like 2000 to 2005. There was a lot of stuff on the internet that's now behind paywalls or because of search engine optimization. If they are, that's hard to find these things. So I remember, like I told you when I read the book Communion in the previous part, that's when it really kind of put me on that alien track, that let's try to study this. I'm not saying that's what it is, but trying to study more what the events is. And I remember seeing a picture that, there's some things in life where, I can't prove it to you scientifically, but they showed like 100 possible alien types. And there was this tall, dark, kind of like predator-looking thing. And we didn't look at it, but I remember I saw a picture of it on the internet once, and I'm like, that's it. That was whatever it was. I just said that to myself. I remember, so that was the very first thing. And because of the trauma, and the fact, this thing taking me, and there was nothing I could do about it. I'm 2 years old, and we go out the sliding glass door and we go up in the air. That was the first traumatized type event. It's probably the very first event that I can remember.
And you remember seeing your mom standing there with her back to you and not reacting whatsoever.
Didn't even turn around. And my mother's passed now last year, and we talked a lot about that. She really thought that was... So far as these events and these things happening, my mom is actually the person I've always talked about. I talk a little bit with my dad, but my dad's more engineer, science type, so talking to him's not really good. But my mom, it always interested her, and she never could figure out, how do you know the colors of that couch? You shouldn't know that. And I said, this is the layout of the house. This is what it looks like. She goes, you shouldn't know that either.
Because that was a house that you left even before you should have been able to remember any of that stuff then, right?
Right. Yeah. And as we go on, I'm going to tell you several more places where we went up in the air. And something I didn't even, because we didn't have a chance to talk about it. One of the houses that this happened was it was a trailer in Ohio that happened a lot. So my dad, it was an up-and-coming engineer, so it seems like we moved every year there until he got to work for NASA when I was about 11. But it was a place called Lakeview Estates. You can look that up in Ohio. It's a trailer park. My brother has a job where he has to drive his personal car to the area, and then he'll drive a full-size truck to deliver to various stores. And for whatever reason, he was there last week, and he sent me a videotape going into the park, exactly where we used to live. The trailer's long gone. There's newer stuff there, but I could see the woods and everything, and just all these memories came back because there was a lot of events that happened there as a kid. And I'm like, what's the chance of him driving in there and then sending him the video? And I'm like, this is crazy.
Right.
That's funny how life just kind of wraps itself back around, and you get a chance to kind of look at it to get it from a different angle. For me, he was looking at it from, hey, we were kids, we played a lot in the woods, but for me, it was like it was feeding me memories of that trauma.
So you probably actually maybe were kind of like, oh, I could have maybe done without that. Of course, it's not like it was a shocker because obviously this was going on a lot for you back then, right? So what kind of events were going on there?
Yeah, again, my brother's not. I've told my brother about it, but he's not one to talk to about it either. I guess you just don't confide this kind of stuff with men, huh?
No, not
my
really.
mom
But
always,
that's okay.
we could talk all the time.
Well, what kind of events were going on there?
So there, it was the constant wake up. So I had two types of events that I can remember. So the one is that you wake up, you can't move, and then you float up into the air. And then I would have like a dream, like a falling dream where I'm falling. I'd wake up like falling into my bed. But when I went up in the air, the interesting thing is when I looked down, I've never been in a helicopter. I shouldn't know what 200 feet above my house looked like. But here I am, I'm 7, 8 years old, 200 feet above my house. And I'm like, that's my house and that's my yard down there.
And this is
that perspective.
Long before Google Earth, right? Where you could just hop on and look
that's
at the top of your
we
house.
Talk about. Yeah, this is 70s, mid-70s going to early 80s, so this is the last of the Front Porch Society. Matter of fact, when I was first grade, I walked home from school And would you let a first grader walk home from school? Nowadays, there's just no way. So people talk to each other. You didn't have all the cable. You didn't have all the media that you have now. So people, that's why they call it front porch society. People walk on the sidewalk, and everybody would be out on the porch. They talk to each other. So the advantage of everybody knowing each other is when kids were out walking home from school or something, everybody knew, that's where you should be and who that was. Everybody was connected. You had the phone. The first internet was the phones. Moms would call moms. Hey, I just saw your son walk by, and I handed him a bag of apples to bring to you, or something like that. It was just different times.
So what about, and I don't know if this is asking too early in our talk, but did your brother ever have any events or ever see anything?
He doesn't remember any of this stuff. He thinks when I bring it up, he's just like, I had too many beers. This is when I was in the Navy. I haven't been drinking 20 years, but I'm like, no, I was a kid. Why should I remember that? And I don't drink anymore, so why would it be that? Right. So I've tried to talk to him here and there, but he's never had any kind of event like that. Let me finish up my thought, because all of these thoughts are coming in. So I had the ones going up the air. I had the suffocation type, or something like sit on your chest, like trying to choke you type thing. And then later on, like once I got towards my military career, my son reminded me about this after he listened to the show. He said, "You remember everywhere we moved, we'd find the refrigerator open, stools would be moved, things would be moved in the house and different places." So the kids always thought it was funny, because not only did we have a ghost in the house, every time I transferred to a new base, it seemed like the ghost, whatever it was, followed us. So they had that going on top of that.
Okay, and isn't that so strange? Because we were just kind of mentioning how some things, other activities seem to cross over into this realm of what we would just like to keep in UFOs/aliens, if that's what they are. And then,
aliens.
And then your son is talking about it seemed like we had a ghost. But in the meantime, you're having what most would probably classify as maybe alien type contact, right?
Right.
So,
right. Both my daughter and my son knew about the ghost, but I never saw anything like that. But that was a big joke with them. Every house we went to, things were moved around. So.
But doesn't it seem though I'm sorry to interrupt you, but doesn't it seem though that in a lot of these stories where people are saying they're being taken by aliens in their home, they're having more like poltergeist activity. Things are moved, like you said, the fridge was open, the chairs are being moved.
Yeah,
are they
That's
just
exactly
the same thing?
Yeah, are they one and the same? It's just questions you got to ask yourself.
Yeah.
Is there something to religion, good versus? I'm not just talking about Christianity. Name a religion, going back to its beginnings. It seems like they all remember the flood story. They all have stories of seeing things come down from the skies, or beings or gods, and all the way back to with the clay tablets and what's his name, Spinchen. And then you could go into your Christianity religions or Muslims, and they all have similar stories of this realm, this unseen realm that we can't see. So that could be there could be a war or something going on right in front of our face, and our eye doesn't even see it because it's not in the light spectrum. I was going to tell you something about it. I said it kind of occurred to me the other day, because I work in communications post-military. So on this internet, as it's gotten more, everybody's wanting more broadband, more speed, just bigger pipes to move data around. Well, it occurred to me that not only do we have this unused spectrum or this unseen spectrum, and they're like, well, if you can't see it, it can't be real. Well, I have news for you. The way fiber optics work, so that's because of fiber optic cables. That's why the internet has gotten to where it is. But they got even better. They learned how to do what they call wave division multiplexing. So light is like a rainbow. It's got these different colors, including colors that the human eye can't see. So they divided up the light, and they put in signals on each one of these light bands. And we're using them to talk. Our conversation runs probably over one of those fiber cables with that technology. So if our scientists and our engineers, and we physically use that day in and day out, we're using something our human eye can't pick up or see. what's to say there's not something else going in that same spectrum that you can't see? So
No,
that's just
absolutely.
my technical part talking.
Yeah, no, and you know what? That's more on the scientific side, which is so cool because I love to tie that stuff in as well. Instead of saying it's always, off planet this or a ghost that. I like hearing that side of it as well. And who's to say they don't whoever they are or it or whatever, that they don't utilize the fact that we have all this extra technology coursing through our houses and the cities and the whole world, that now they can't visit us more frequently or in a different way.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's people that complain about having too much noise because all the Wi-Fi, the 5 gigahertz spectrum, it's just more noise that's happening all around you. There's all these signals flying back and forth that you didn't have before. So that could be a reason, like when you visit the mountains or get out in the national forest, you feel a sense of peace. Because all that noise, not only the noise going through, but the unseen realm might die down, whatever it might be, whether it's aliens or... But me personally, I think it's all interconnected somehow.
Yeah.
Do I have the answer? No.
Well, come on, Mark. You're supposed to have the answers here.
It really bugs me, and unfortunately, maybe when we cross over and when we die, and by the way, that's a one-way ticket for everybody. I mean, we're all gonna, but maybe that's when we find out more information. When when you finally make that final trip. But do you really? You're like, well, you don't want to hurry up and die to find out. But there's a lot of smart people trying to figure this out.
What do you think? What do you think about like something like CERN? Do you think that's a good idea, or do you think they're really screwing with something they shouldn't be screwing with?
I think some of it's a good idea, and I think it's some exact. I'm both ways. Whoever the creator is, because I don't want to step on anybody's religion. I mean, how far are we getting into the God zone that with playing around with CERN? Colliding particles, because we're looking for a certain what they call the God particle, which I think they've found pieces of dark matter, which they could put us all in a black hole in an instant. They're experimenting, and that's one accelerator. People don't realize that there's a bunch of these accelerators. They're just not as big as that one. All over the world, every country has these accelerators they're playing with. So we could be playing with something. Why are they searching for that anyways? If I'm crazy, why are they looking for stuff like that?
Yeah, they're spending billions of dollars doing it too. I always find it very interesting that all of that going on at CERN, and we've all seen the photos of the quote unquote demon faces and all of that, but to me I think that's that's just pareidolia going on there. I mean, I'm not saying it couldn't be some kind of an entity coming through there, especially with what they're messing with, but I just I'm just going, I think it's pareidolia, guys. All these demon faces.
Speaking of demons, we can get back to what happened to me in Albany, New York.
I was just going there. I was just going to say, let's talk about the funeral home, shall we?
I think that kind of segues nice into the demon part of this, or what the maybe the evil versus good type thing. So, like I said, my dad was an up-and-coming engineer, so he's going company. And this time he was working for a company called Corning Glassworks. Ironically, they build fiber optic cables. That's one of their main businesses. I don't know if that's what he was doing in the 70s, but this house he rented was a duplex. And before it was a duplex, it was a funeral parlor. So it's where they prepared bodies for, funerals and stuff like that. So not only did I already have, the one phenomenon or event happen, and they add in, I'm terrified to go to sleep in this place. Something's always happened. I could just feel it. And this is where I start burying myself under the blankets. I think I talk about part one. I put a pillow over my head all the way until I was like 32. I slept with a pillow over my head. Actually, I think later than that, till my 40s. Because of that house, because of what went on. And there, my parents never caught me sleepwalking, but they would be like hide and go seek in the morning, trying to figure out where was that. I'd be in a closet one day. I'd be, I might even be out on the porch. I think they found me one time. Be under a bed. So it was always a mystery where I was at. So the one time the whole neighborhood got involved and the police got called because they couldn't find me. But after they had searched for a good hour or so, they found me because I was 6 or 7 years old and a pretty skinny kid. I was tucked in on the dining room chair, with the chair pushed under the table. So I was in the house, but I was in a really crunched position. How did the chair get pushed in like that? How did I pull it in and then I just stuffed myself up in there? It did. To me, it doesn't make sense. That my mom, she talked to a lot of people about this. She thought that was just the strangest thing, and how the cops got called and was looking at me. So yeah, there was part of the possible evil that you can add in, or because where people are that's why people don't like going to cemeteries. I mean, if you don't like going to cemetery, you think you're gonna like living in a house that there used to be a funeral parlor in?
I mean, what do you remember other things from that duplex? Like any sounds or actually seeing anything?
Yes, I remember hearing knocks, sounds. I was convinced there was monsters under the bed, like most kids and stuff. But I would hear things.
Yeah, except you probably really did have something under the bed.
Yeah, there might have been something. But like I said, maybe that unseen realm. It's odd when they make cartoons about that. Again, if this isn't real, why'd they make a cartoon of like a different realm of monsters in the closet? I can't remember the name of it. It's one of those newer kids, with the couple monsters, and they're good guys in the cartoons, of course. But I don't think they're good guys in this sense. I don't think they were good at all. So that place was very traumatic on the evil demon type side. Something was going on in that place.
But you do feel like that is separate from these other events. You really do feel that.
Yes, I think that was just the add-on. So the first one was the trauma, and then had that, and then the next place I moved to was that place, Lakeview, Ohio. I was playing Lakeview Estates. That's when I started going up in the air and having the recurring dreams of going up, being able to see down, like from a helicopter view that I should have no clue of being able to see down 200 feet up in the air. And then falling in my bed later, waking up, in sweats, those cold, terrifying sweats. It would happen over and over again. And I tell my mom about it, but, back then you just manned up. They say that's everybody has these type of dreams. Well, I don't know. Does everybody have these type of dreams? But when you get older and you work on one of the most classified systems the military's got, and you go underwater and you don't have them, and you can't wait to go to sea because it's not going to happen. That's weird.
Yeah, I think that is the weirdest aspect of the whole thing. Why would it completely stop once you're aboard the ship or the sub?
Yeah.
Can they not get you there somehow? Or would it attract too much attention? Or, could they not see you? Surely they could see. I don't know. My mind is just going crazy because ever since I talked to you that first time.
You drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, well, after we had
maybe because there were so many people around. I don't know if it's being underwater, the thickness of the hole for going. I don't know if it's because people were constantly on watch. Somebody's always up. Or patrolling an area, because in a submarine, that's somebody's got to be walking around and making sure water's not coming in what we call the people tank, because water in the people tank's bad.
See, I don't know though, because lots of these experiences occur sometimes when someone is laying right next to their spouse, and they'll wake up and they'll try to get their spouse to wake up, and it's like their spouse is just like turned off. Like they can't hear them, they can't interact with them. So part of me is like, can they just not somehow figure out how to get you from an oxygen-rich environment through water and then back to oxygen, to take you up? If we're just boiling it down to the basics, I don't know. That probably sounds really silly, but maybe they just don't have the technology.
What you described happened to me. I don't know if you've talked to other people that's happened to, but yes, I've been taken from my bed, looked down, and could see my spouse at the time just turned off. Like what move? I'm screaming inside. I'm helpless. See her turned off, in a turned off state, sleeping away, like it's nothing.
But Mark, do you know if you were screaming inside or are you actually screaming, audibly?
Well, I was trying to wake myself up because it seemed like a bad dream. So I'm being taken from my bed. But the thing is, I never really got except for that one incident at 2, I never really got to see anything. I think when I read that book, Communion, I think my mind messed with me, making me think there was gray aliens around me. And it certainly felt like there was something in the room. Not just something, but some things, like plural, when these things happen as I got older.
Can you expound upon the tall, dark figure? Can you give us any more details? Like, how tall was it? Was it skinny? Did you see its face?
Yeah, so it's from a two-year-old perspective. It just seemed like I saw that picture. It's just like I said, there's something that clicks into your soul, and you're like, that's what it was. I saw a picture of him once. They used to have pictures of all these supposed races that were visiting the planet. Some were bad and some were good. And I think this one was in the bad category. But it seemed lizardy, leathery type, dark skin, dark features. But from a two-year-old's perspective, I mean, 4 feet tall could have been tall to me. But from back then, it seemed like it was 7 foot tall. It seemed like it was taller than my mom, and she was 5'8". And I remember this thing just carrying me out the back door, and I'm like, "Hey, Mom, I'm going out the back door." Yeah, are we gonna do something about this?
Right, like I guess see ya.
Yeah, going out with this thing, and then you can say, well, that was just somebody that picked him up. Well, why did I go up in the air with it? And the thing is, I feel cheated out of it because you read, if you go back to the UFO side of it, these people, they have perspectives where they remember being on board and they remember seeing these things. I don't have none of that. That would be great if I did. I think that's why you're asking me, can you give me anything else? That's all I got. Now, I wish I had more. I wish I could put it together.
In the first part, for episode 247, again, encourage everybody to go listen to that first part. You mentioned the counselor, that she was the one that, brought up the book Communion, and she brought up doing a regression. And you, of course, declined, which I don't think is out of the realm of something that I would also say, because, you want to know, but do you really want to know, like, all the details? And, of course, regression therapy has its own, proponents against, for and against.
Which I bring up. I didn't want to know was number one. And number two, I knew that would break some kind of operational security measure. I'm sure the command wouldn't be happy if they did that. Or if I went, hey, the counselor you set me up with, well, she did regression therapy. I'm sure they wouldn't be too happy about that because, you could talk about stuff that you shouldn't be talking about.
Right. Yeah, because you're basically, at the base of it, not really quite yourself and in control, right? So.
Mm-hmm. And people question if regression therapy is really real or is that because I read one book. They said that there's different people that do regression. Some of the famous people that did these studies, they tend to push people into their style of regression therapy. So it just, I don't want to get off on a track, but it just gets really, when you try to really think into it and think on what's happening to you, because I know I'm not the only one this is happening to. It's happened to thousands of people. That's why I think it's, especially nowadays, because with podcasting, there's so much more ability for people to get their stories out there, or even write it down and put it out there on some of these websites.
Yeah.
And try to put it together. And this is a great time where information seems to be flowing. That whoever doesn't want it flowing, because they might know more than we do, that it's hard for them to stop it. So maybe we might be coming to where we can put all this stuff together. And meanwhile, like we talked earlier, they're messing around with the God particle and accelerators. If they're trying to figure out, why can't we try to figure it out?
Well, we do our best.
What's wrong with that?
Now, Mark, what about the suffocation type events that you were talking about in Ohio? I'm sure you've heard of the old hag syndrome, right? Where you feel like something's sitting on your chest.
Yes, I read about that, and I wonder if that went.
Yeah, so you
and that happened all the way to adult, from kid to adult. So it'd either be go up in the air with whatever, or to sit on the chest and feel like it was choking you out.
But again, you've never seen anything except for when you were 2 and being let out by the thing.
That's the only time I can actually say I saw something. You're correct.
I have a question for you.
And okay.
So you saw this thing, and this is one of your earliest memories, right? Obviously, I can't remember. I can't.
The earliest.
Yeah, I can't really say that I remember anything from when I was 2. So that's remarkable in and of itself. Now, the fact that your earliest memory is this thing leading you out right by your mom, boop, out you go, very traumatizing. Do you think that whoever messed up and left that memory in your head?
Oh, yeah, if you go, like you said, that this is just my story. So, yeah, you got people that stories that they said that part of whoever abducts you or whatever it is erases the memory. Yeah, and maybe that's how we put it together. Like what I was saying before, enough of us come forward with our bits and pieces, because maybe it isn't as clean as they think it is. Some people remember it one way, some people remember it another, and the spots where they mess up, maybe we can put it together and try to come up with something hand to a scientist. Hey, we think we got it. You know, this is what's going on. No, I was going to say I don't like plugging another show, but like the recent Joe Rogan with George Knapp, you know, that whole thing with Bigelow. What was he doing? He bought that ranch, the Skinwalker's Ranch, and all the weird stuff going on. I mean, not only the weird stuff like we're talking about, but everything weird that you hear about is what's going on in this one particular place, and a billionaire is pouring money and scientists into trying to figure this out.
Well,
so I don't think it's crazy at all for us to try to figure this out. With shows like yours and other people coming forward and talking.
Well, Keel always
spending good money.
Keel always talked about window areas. You know, that some places everything just wants to be around there. They want to come through there. And if we happen to be able to figure out where these window areas are, like, you know, maybe Skinwalker Ranches, that's a great place to build somewhere like that to research. But yeah, that's what, you know, came to mind because yeah, you got to see it when you were 2.
Well, I didn't think nothing about the... Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry,
I was going to segue into something else, but go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just saying that you saw it once when you were 2. Why not allow you to see them again or ever again? You know, that's baffling to me that you only saw it the one time, but you continue to have the same type of events.
Right. Over and over. And then when I had it in the military, right before I gotten that accident into my career. I mean, the kids remember going house to house, and they thought it was fun with the ghosts. You know, the ghost was always leaving doors open and stools in certain places, which I never saw that. But I remember having these, you called it the old hag events, the crushing type thing, and then, you know, going up in the air type feeling. So, yeah, it's just all nuts. But something so when you read into this, you start listening to, back then it was Art Bell, you know, started it all, you know, and now we got a lot of, and I think it's great. The more people would join into trying to figure this out, the better. But, you know, I have an interest in the Sasquatch thing, what started with Leonard Nimoy. I think we touched on that so he was the first one with the event that Bigfoot was seen on the film there. Was it 1967? I can't remember, but I think I wrote in my email, I don't know if you remember that part, but we used to go and play out in the swamps all the time. It was called the Econ-Lockahatchee River. That's a hard word to say, but it was Indian territory down there back in the day. And the Indians believed in this swamp ape, or what do they want? People call it the swamp cabbage man or stuff. But when I was a kid, I never paid attention. So I remember we'd walk back to the swamp, and like I said, front porch society, people be out in their front yard doing some work or just sitting on the porch, and they'd be like, hey, you guys watch out for those wild men back there. Never knew what they were talking. I mean, they would say it over and over. So when I'm 35 years old and now starting to have an interest in that kind of stuff, and then you hear about wild men, of course, you know, it's part of the Sasquatch lore, and I'm like, well, that must have been what they were talking about. But it took me years before I could put it together. So everything just wraps around.
Those stinky swamp men, they, you know, the ones that stay wet most of the time tend to smell a little bit worse, like the skunk apes in Florida. So
yeah, we smelt that smell. We would come by and walk. You'd get in the swamp, you know, we'd have those horrible smells. We'd hear knocks, but none of us were thinking Bigfoot, because back then there wasn't enough information for kids to really, unless somebody checked it out at the library at school, you didn't know anything about it. I mean, the only thing that was known about it was Leonard Nimoy. That was it. So I can't say, well, he had all this information. Of course, no, I didn't have anything. We didn't have the internet. I mean, this is 81, 80, 1980. There was nothing going on for me to tell me what was going on, except for people going, watch out for those wild men out there. This is kind of interesting.
Now, that wasn't the only thing going on in Florida, and I want to make sure that we touch on this. And that is the fact that there is possible physical evidence on you that this stuff was, in fact, you know, really going on, right? Like, even your mom would find marks on you.
Thank you for reminding me. Yes. My mom would find marks on my back right shoulder, and she would find marks on the sides of my knees, like divots. And she even took me to a doctor to check it out, and they didn't think it was much of it. They said, maybe you got injured, but it was a divot, like it was a healed divot. How do you get a healed divot in your skin? I mean, usually, you injure yourself, cut it, bleeds, it scabs over. But I would have like a divot to do it. It just come out of nowhere.
Like the classic.
My mom would find them on my back.
Like the classic scoop marks that people talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about the divots. I've only barely read a little bit about them, so I'm not sure. But yeah, it looked like somebody just took a scoop mark and it's perfectly healed. And that really concerned my mom because I mean, not she wasn't thinking, this craziness stuff, but back then, we had asthma and as a kid and all this stuff. So she was concerned that medically there must be something. But she tried to find an explanation for it. But no, you just have these healed divots in your skin. So I know that there was that one doctor that was taking little things out of people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was something to that. He was retrieving. Was it Dr. Greer? I mean, there's two Dr. Greers, but I think there was the surgeon that passed away, I don't know, 10 years ago. He was actually taking these things out of people.
Name? I forgot his name. I have so many floating around in my head now. Oh, it's going to bug me.
That's the thing. There's so much. You know what? It's so much to remember, but I'm glad there's all this information out because it shows like yours. I mean, you can talk to people and try to put that. Like I said, I don't have the answer. I got extra information, and if you can take from it and we could put it together, well, that's a win for us because I think based on what I'm hearing here, because it seems like things are accelerating. It seems like time's getting faster than me. And, if they're out there on Skinwalker's Ranch trying to put that together, spending billions of dollars, and then they're smashing particles with CERN, I mean, they're trying to figure out what we're trying to figure out just in a different method, different way. They're trying to do it scientifically, and we're just trying to do it from, well, it happened to a bunch of people. Let's try to make sense out of it.
Yeah, I wish they weren't trying to film a TV show out there at Skinwalker Ranch. I'm not a big fan of that. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. I don't know. There's something about that. Plus, I couldn't even get through the first episode of that show, to be honest with you.
I haven't even seen it. I've only seen bits and pieces. So the Skinwalker one they had, I haven't had a chance to even run it and look at it.
The History Channel
I don't want to waste good money.
No, the History Channel is no longer quite what I don't know. I'm getting on a soapbox now. But it was Dr.
Yeah, we could get out of it. Yeah, you're right. Well, it's about viewers and getting and making money. So
of course,
you got to be careful of that. You got scientists trying to prove what's going on, and then you got broadcasters who are trying to get people in the seats so they can make money off of commercials, and then you got what's going on. There's all kinds of stuff.
Well, what got me just about I was done was and I get it. The guy's a billionaire. I get it, but he's picking up the scientist who is a legit scientist, right? To get him out to Skinwalker Ranch. He picks him up in his Lamborghini and drives him. It was here in Vegas. Drives him to Henderson Airport, or the smaller one that carries the right next to McCarran, where the private jets fly out, and they get on his private helicopter. And I'm like rolling my eyes so hard I probably sprained an eyeball, and I was done at that point. But anyhow, so it was Dr. Roger Lear was the one.
Lear. I knew it was close to Greer.
I had
to.
Dr. Yeah, you were close. I had to look it up on my phone, but I could not let that go without saying it.
Yeah, it was Dr. Roger Lear. That's the name. Yeah. I don't think whatever he filmed, I don't think he was trying. I think he was just trying to figure it out. I give the guy credit.
Oh, of course.
I mean, putting your career on the line like that.
Of course. No, and there's nobody.
How many surgeons are going to try to do that?
Well, I was just going to say there's nobody carrying the torch after him now, at least not yet. So we'll see if anybody comes up. But well, Mark, is there anything else that we need to kind of touch on here?
Well, I'm just trying to. Listen to part one. Part one of what I have to say is it kind of what wraps all this up. So we've talked about all the weirdness, kind of what I called events in part one. So I think all we've done here today with part two is dissect the events a little bit. Yeah. And I've given you a little bit of and I can't give you. I wish I could give you more. I want to say I saw aliens. I want to say this happened, but I think the best way for us to achieve our goal by putting our stories together, like I said, is for us to try to be as truthful as we can about what happened in our personal experiences. And if people can be truthful and just be truthful to themselves when they go on the internet and type something up what happened to them or come on and show you, like I think that accelerates our ability to try to put this together.
No, I appreciate the fact that you didn't do that in part one and you're not doing that today. You have not embellished in any way. I appreciate that more than anything when people come on with me, because I mean, sure, you could have added a few more aliens in there. Sure, there was an alien under the bed, but you didn't, and I appreciate
Well,
that.
not only that, I would have loved to see him. That would explain a lot. But no, there's no sense in adding it in because it just that. But I mean, I do think all this is interrelated. I don't have it figured, but the good versus evil, religion, the whole UFO alien. I think it's all interrelated somehow. And I think the government or people with money know it too. I don't think they probably got the answers, but they know something's going on. It's just that they have other resources to figure it out that we don't. Well, if you get what I'm saying.
Just kind of in closing here, and again, thank you so much for being willing to come on, especially with the positions that you've held in the military and your high clearances. I can't thank you enough. But for anybody going through this out there, or maybe their kids are going through this, do you have any words of wisdom, things that might help them? Do you have anything to say to those folks?
I can get, like, when I was growing up, people just didn't talk about stuff like this. I only talked to my mom, but I think it's different times. I say get it out there. Definitely talk with your parents. And if you can't talk to your parents, talk to a good friend that you could trust. Because these things, if you're having anything like I had, they're terrifying. And so you got to talk to somebody. So my word of advice is, get it out and talk to somebody. And then if you can talk to somebody, try to expand on it. Go out and research it. There's lots of stuff out on the internet. The only problem is, like we talked today, there's people trying to make money out of it, and they add things that shouldn't be added. But, go out there and I didn't have Google 30, 40 years ago. I mean, you got all this great information to go. So definitely want to talk to somebody about it. And go out there and try to search it and read. There's good books. There's bad books, but you got to be able to discern for yourself.
Yeah, amen
and,
on that.
That's why I attracted me listening to a lot of your shows. I mean, it seems like you're cutting right to the chase. You're trying to figure it out too, and you don't have any answers. I don't think you're adding on either. So I think that's what makes us a good team here, at least for these couple segments. We're not trying to add. We're just trying to figure it out.
No, and we're going to
definitely talk to somebody.
Yeah, we're going to keep in touch. I mean, just because we're hanging up on episode 2, I mean, obviously, not that anybody's
I told you today I got other weird stuff happening, so life never stops.
That's
Let's just
right.
put it that way. Life never stops for anybody until you cross over the
That's
other side.
right. We're not saying that there's not going to be a part 3. Who knows what may happen,
I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, so think something crazy could happen after coming forward. And I don't feel like I put anything I did for the Navy, the government. I don't feel like I put, and I don't think you do. I didn't say anything about what systems, to compromise anything. It was just the biggest thing I was trying to get across was holding those type clearances. And when I was out to sea, nothing happened, and I felt comfortable, and I couldn't wait to go to sea because I knew I was protected.
Yeah,
so
and
that's the biggest thing. My story might be like others, but take that part with you. Take the part that why did I feel comfortable on the submarine and not anywhere else?
Yeah, take that with you. And if you guys have any suggestions or ideas as to why, let us know. Mark, did you create a separate email for people to get a hold of you? Didn't you do that?
Yeah, I got a separate.
Do you want to shout that out so that people can get in touch?
It's So it's I kind of put like empty subs, like because I'm not a submarine, it's empty, but it's a Michael. So it's MT subs together, Mark at gmail.com.
MT subs.
So MTSUBS Mark at gmail.com.
All right, cool.
Yeah, I'd be interested if anybody. Matter of fact, I did get a couple emails, and one from a military guy that was thanking me, and he had interesting stories to share too. I don't want to share his stories, but I think that's for him to share. But I thought it was interesting. He reached out and he was like, "Man, I'm glad somebody came forward because I had something similar. It was similar, not the same, but like I said earlier, it's good to talk with somebody. If you feel like you can't tell anybody else, tell me your story. I'd be interested. I'm not going to share it with anybody else. We can talk about it, and maybe I can help you out. I can steer you with information that I know. So getting a hold of Shannon LeGros helps too.
Sometimes, I mean, at least I can lend an ear if nothing else.
That's right.
Mark, I cannot thank you enough for being willing to come on. it's been such a pleasure to speak with you. But yeah, if, when things start to whatever and you want to come back on part 3, let's do it.
All right, I do appreciate the offer, and I will keep you, if things keep happening, something weird happens, you'll be the first to know. Things have been smooth sailing for a little while, but you never know. Things might start changing. So
Smooth
I appreciate
sailing.
it, Shannon.
Yeah, pun intended, right?
Pun intended.
Thank you, Mark.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little biography. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. Well, nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. But then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam by the koans to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. They will say reincarnation means this, that if you sitting here now are really convinced that you're the same person who walked in at the door half an hour ago, you're being reincarnated. If you are liberated, you will understand that you're not. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. There is only the present. That's the only real you that there is. The Zen master Dogen put it in this way. He said, the spring does not become summer. First there is summer, and then there is spring. as when you settle down in the train to read your newspaper and so on, you are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in a chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. A master will say to somebody, get up and walk across the room. And he comes back and he says, where are your footprints? They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.